Hello and welcome to the Miscast table. My name is Jonas.
And my name is Mons, and tonight we have gathered to talk about the old world.
Yeah, we are drawing closer, hopefully at least.
Yeah, and this is a video that is long overdue. We've been talking and speculating amongst ourselves for a very long time about the old world, and we finally want to share some thoughts with the internet as well.
Yeah, the community posts say that they are going to update us semi-regularly. I don't really know what that means. It doesn't necessarily seem that we get updates all that often.
No, semi-regularly. We looked when the last update was before for this one, and it was in February. So semi-regularly,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. No,
It seems like whenever they feel like it.
yeah, it does.
Yeah, but until we get actual content, you'll get our content.
Yeah, we can speculate instead. So this is the first video on what is going to be a series on the old world.
Yeah. We sketched up a few videos that we know that we want to make. We want to go into the setting of the lore, where are we, what are each of the characters that each of the factions are interested in, like the leaders, notable names, where are they in the world right now and what are they up to.
Yeah, according to the year that we're in, probably the year range, what are the main characters up to? The most important one being Malekith, of course, as a Dark Elf player. So we're gonna cover Malekith a lot.
Yeah, unfortunately for me, my ogres aren't really up to much at the moment, but I think that they could leave ample room for some new stories to be told without necessarily changing all that much.
No, I think that they have a lot of potential to do a lot of fun things, because we're starting in the year 2200 something.
Yeah.
We don't know exactly, but somewhere around there. So we're around like 300 years before the end times, and most people are a bit on the fence about the end times lore. So they have like plenty of opportunities to keep the old good stuff while making some new fun lore as well.
But we'll also give you our take on what are other potential good things that they could do for the game.
Yeah.
So we thought that we would give you our top 5. We'll try to keep it to top 5.
Yeah, top something at least.
Wish list of things that would be good for the game if they at least considered including.
Yeah, Christmas is on the doorstep, and we're writing a list. We're not checking it twice, but we're hoping that Santa or Games Workshop will bring something good for us.
Yeah. So tell me, Mons, what is the first and foremost thing that you want Games Workshop to include in this old world package that they're going to release?
I think the first thing that I would like to see is the ability to play games on different scales. I feel like sometimes when you play like a 2000 point game, for example, it's a lot of models. Like in my Empire army, it's like 160 models. And the ability to build your lists in different ways. Maybe I could play an Empire army with more monsters or more stuff like that. Or if they include the ability to play games at a different scale.
Yeah, I could see them fine-tuning the army building aspect of the game. Because there are some issues with, especially with certain factions. If I get to mention my own, Ogre Kingdoms for an example, if you want to play a normal game and you want to include like the bare minimum of lords and heroes, you want your tyrant, you want your bruiser with the battle standard, and you want a level 2 wizard.
Yeah.
Then already there you are spending like 600 points without any upgrades, and then you are basically forced into playing that 2000 point game because your army isn't going to function normally otherwise.
Yeah, I think Ogre Kingdoms is a great example. We have played a lot of different games and a lot of different like point levels, and that's an army that completely falls apart at too low a point threshold. And I think including the ability to play games at different scales, they have done that pretty well in like both AOS and in 40k. The ability to play smaller games as well as bigger ones. And the ability to do that as well for fantasy would be a much needed thing in my opinion.
And I think that also would go well into the different kind of players that there are out there, because not everyone necessarily fits into the same kind of box when they try to build their army. Not everyone is necessarily interested in having that core block of 40 infantrymen in their empire army. There might be some players that want to play a fast army, and if you would make it possible to like diversify the kind of armies that you get to build. Like some people just want to have carrots in their army, or some people might just want to have monsters in their army. open the door to that kind of list building.
Yeah, I think you should be like more flexible. Maybe you should have some core units that cost a bit more points, so you can get down in like point level or in like model count. Yeah, because I love my Empire army. Don't get me wrong, but painting 40 models that look exactly the same, it's like fun for the first 5, and after that it becomes more of like a chore, and that's not how it's supposed to be. And maybe some people feel different, that it's fun all 40, but having the ability to play different kind of games.
I think that goes more as well into the army building itself, like point-wise how many models you'd be required to build, but also into how you form units.
Yeah.
There needs to be a viable option to field 10-man elite infantry units, as well as those 50-man block. I don't necessarily know if I want them to keep the horde formation thing in 8th edition. I think it would be fun to see a much wider range of different number of ranks and files depending on what role you want that specific unit to fill.
Yeah, and I guess that also comes a bit into our second point, which is like scenarios.
Yeah.
If you have the ability to play like smaller games, you can have scenarios that are fit for that. Maybe you play like a smaller kind of skirmish style in a small village or something like that, and like a wider range of scenarios that fit different size of armies.
And when we say scenarios, we mean like objective-wise what you want to perform in the game. It's not all about clashing 2 armies into each other and see what's left on the table. I think that there should be room for like Pyrrhic victories. Even if you are the player that is down on unit models, perhaps you were the more tactical and strategical mind of the game. You perhaps ensure that your army fulfill the objectives that they need to fulfill, and you still won the game even though when everything was over your model count was in like bare minimum.
Yeah, I completely agree, and if you have like the 6 scenarios in the book, they're kind of similar, but one scenario that is on the line that you're talking about is Watchtower, where you win if you hold the Watchtower. Watchtower is a very problematic scenario for other reasons, but it's kind of a similar thing, that you achieve an objective that is not necessarily just killing the opponent's army and you're just counting points. Yeah. And I think having more like scenarios like that at the different scale would be really fun.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be like completely binary either. That's another issue with Watchtower. Like either you win or you lose completely. There should be like a grand victory that you build over time as you play the game, and I think newer scenarios would fix that.
Yeah, you could have like a main objective and some secondary objectives without making it too complicated. Because sometimes when you play a scenario and you just play battle line, for example, I think that sometimes it's just clashing stuff together, and it's more fun, I think, when you have a objective on the side and stuff like that.
There is something to be said, however, for just clashing armies together as well.
Yeah,
it's great fun at times to just outmaneuver your opponent, try to kill their leader, their battle standard bearer, and then try to count it up at the end. And there are good games to be had in that way as well.
Yeah,
but I think they should be complemented.
Yeah, I think that they should be complemented. So they should have like a bigger scenario kit and also like for different scales. We talked about this before as well. You had the idea that you could have like terrain kits, for example, where you have a terrain for a specific scenario, and then you use that terrain as like specified in the box, and I think that's a great idea.
Like have Games Workshop released like fantasy terrain features, like a marshland themed box. You get everything you need to play that kind of terrain on other scenarios as well, but if you buy the box, then you get the rules store, how you can play this kind of mini scenario.
Because that would encourage GW to one, make more terrain, which I think is fun. 2, they will sell stuff. And 3, it would encourage them to make more scenarios, which will get more variety. So I think it's a great idea, and it would be really fun to have some variety in the scenarios. Because what I feel sometimes when you use the 8th edition book right now, there are a lot of rules for terrain, but where do I get the river? And where do I get like a marshland?
And especially when you're starting out.
Yeah.
Then you have the whole workload of building your army, painting it. It's really hard to find the time to build the terrain as well.
Yeah.
And if you have seen like some of our videos, we like to do the scatter terrain thing. We think it's really nifty to have like these different kinds of terrain
Randomized
rules.
terrain, yeah.
That doesn't necessarily all that often come into play otherwise. And I think the rules for them are so fun, so that they should encourage them more. I think that was one of the good aspects of 8th edition.
Yeah, I think when you play with the entire like terrain rule set, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But we meet a lot of people when we play that don't really play with the terrain rules at all. They basically just use them as like impassable terrain and just like blockers.
Yeah.
But there's so much depth to be had in the terrain when you use it with the rules its fullest. And workshop should definitely take advantage of that and make more specific stuff.
Yeah, and we'll go into an area that is tangent to this, and that is accessibility, because there are great model kits out there. Like they are absolutely fantastic. Like the mansion set box is awesome. There is the wizard tower, but the problem is that they cost a ton of money right now.
Yeah.
So if they would release new terrain sets, I don't think they would have a problem at all selling it.
Yeah, I can probably retire on my Tomb King's army, to be honest. No, not really, but it's quite expensive. And of course, I think that things should be accessible. But another part of me is like, I have like a very expensive Cetra model, for example, and some other expensive models. And if they just reprint the like old sculpts, they're probably going to go down in value, which for me that's alright. I can live with that.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of people don't think that's pretty fun. It's been a discussion for like Magic and stuff like that with reprints.
Yeah.
And
but this is our wish list, so we get to sidestep
we
that
get to
problem.
decide. Yeah.
I think accessibility to the game is really important. I don't necessarily know that they should reprint all the old lords and heroes of 8th edition or older editions, because they are not going to be part of this new setting anyways.
Yeah.
It would be fun to just see them remake new kits, like if there is a like model on a Griffon that you could use as Karl Franz. Fine, but perhaps base him around a new character instead in the new setting.
Yeah, but I completely agree. But there are like some, like Cetra for example, he's in the show.
But that's a special character as well, because he's ancient.
Yeah, he's immortal.
Sigmar times, and still are like knocking heads around when he feels like it.
Yeah, he is the immortal king. But there, I think a good compromise, as we talked about before off camera, is that you can make a new model sculpt and print like a new model. So we have like a new version of Cetra, but I can still use my old model of Cetra, and that is still like out of print, which makes it a bit more.
It might even drive up demand for it.
Yeah, it makes it so it's still like unique and valuable, and it keeps its value without like
wants to collect it, or like has fond memories of the time when they played it. They don't lose out on their coming new models to the market.
Yeah, you don't gatekeep the new players while not screwing over the people who put their entire savings account into plastic. And
there is another aspect as well. I don't see particularly many problems with the old model kits. Like take the Bretonnian army for example, that we have seen, or we have seen hints that are going to come back.
Yeah.
Those old models are fine, I think. I don't see any problems at all. When you paint them up, they look amazing on the table.
Yeah. A lot of the old stuff look good, as long as it's not the resin stuff is a bit iffy. But
the fine cast.
But the newer stuff is great. And
and on the bits kit, where you get all these fun little like trinkets and customization bits.
But on the talk of like the small bit kits, one other thing is items.
Yeah.
Like having a large library of magical items and stuff you can use, that is an amazing thing.
Yeah, I absolutely love what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
And even if you might be telegraphing what kind of list you are building by putting exactly that item on your model, I think it goes into the spirit of the game.
I think I completely agree, because it's like, I imagine like you're walking to, like seeing like Malekith for example on the battlefield with his great sword and all of that, and of course that's telegraphing, but it would be on the battlefield as well.
Yeah.
It's not like he's gonna have like an ugly old helmet and then he's like, haha, this is the magical ancient, like it's gonna be some like great thing. Yeah. it is still telegraphing, but it's also realistic, because otherwise it would be a bit weird.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind at all if they just release new bits, like add some fun trinkets every now and then when you make new scouts.
Yeah.
Just make sure that you retain the units in a mannerism that is compatible with the older models as well. So that if they release new prints, new scouts of the Bretonnian Knights, they don't need to be all dynamic and rising hoofs in the air, lances that are like standards and
so you can't line up and you can't push together. And
I think there is a case to be made to just like leave what is perfectly fine well alone, and then just continue making more stuff with it.
But talking about like older stuff, like being able to use the older stuff, we also have the army books themselves.
Yeah, so that is the fourth part on our list. Like, make the game compatible with the old versions. We have seen that there are going to be some certain new factions that are going to have their updates come early. We're going to see the Bretonnians, we're going to see the Greenskin, we're going to see Kislev, Tomb Kings, and the Wood Elves are going to have some updates. And all of those armies are well deserving of being updated into like getting new models. We're going to have Grand Cathay. It'll be really interesting to see how those scouts work out in the game. It's amazing that they get new rulebook, but if there's any like goodwill to be had from Games Workshop, make it possible so that all the armies that don't get updates are still capable of bringing their army to the table when we get this in stores and people start collecting their perhaps new very first army of the old world. And they have this friend that is playing, like, let's say Skaven. I don't know if they're going to get an update early or not, but let's say Skaven. And they have their army pre-built, ready to go. Let that player play alongside the newer.
Yeah, because I'm looking at this at like, in my wish list, in my head, this new old world is going to be like an updated version of 8, where they fix some of the problems and make it like better. And if you look, for example, for the Dogs of War army, they have only a 5th edition army book, but you can still like port that onto 8.
Yeah, and you have to do some quick fixes. But if you have a good community play group, you sort it out and you make it work. Yeah. And you get good games out.
And that is the way it should be handled, I suppose, because when it's released, we're probably gonna get like a handful of army books, like 4 or 5 armies maybe.
Yeah.
But at least you should be able to use your older army books for the armies that haven't been released to play games. Yeah. That would be loads of fun.
Otherwise they're just gonna split the remaining communities apart. Like, okay, so you weren't in the first release, tough luck. Buy our new stuff.
Yeah, I guess so. It's gonna be a bit problematic.
I don't think that's gonna succeed at all.
And I don't think players are gonna be that happy. Like a lot of the people that are excited about old worlds, it's like old dudes like us that have our old armies and we're excited to play them. And if the game is released and then we're gonna have to wait like another year and a half or two for our army books to be upgraded. Yeah, I think people are gonna get a bit salty about that. So a quite easy way is to have some kind of port system, and it doesn't have to be perfect.
No.
But at least that you can get some games in would be great.
Yeah, and I think part of that is retaining the stat lines of the old armies. Like, let us keep weapon skill, ballistic skill, movement, strength, toughness, wounds, initiative, and leadership. Like, we are used to that stuff. We don't need them replaced with bravery or some new keywords for replacing how you roll damage.
Yeah, I agree. Like the way you play OS, it's simple, it's fun, but it's not the game we're looking for here. We play Old World for a reason, I suppose.
And I don't mind there being a ton of abilities, specific rules for how you reform from flank charges, or there are. I just want the rules to be more accessible. Like, make them digital, make them so that you can look up keywords from other keywords and make them come in a like more intuitive order. Because learning the game from scratch is hard still.
And since the rulebook is so complex, having it like available so you can just look things up at like in an app or online, that would be very helpful.
Yeah,
just looking in the book is a chore.
Yeah, and I think one of the good things about keeping it digital is going to be that you can make fine-tuning to things that might perhaps been not properly addressed. Like, you can FAQ a wording that is problematic, and you can replace it with an improved
writing. The living rulebook kind of style that 9th edition have is good, and I think that GW should learn from that. It means they're gonna sell less books, I suppose, but you win some, you lose some.
I mean, it's as long as they keep the core rules so that they are easily updated or complemented by errata.
Yeah. And talking about like rules, it's also one of those points that we would like to mention is that there are some rules in 8th edition and also in 9th edition, in my opinion, that are a bit problematic. Cannons in 8th edition, for example.
Love them or hate them.
Yeah.
There are some issues with it because there is kind of like rock, scissors, papers.
Yeah, I suppose. But they fix them in 9th, but they're not great there either. They feel a bit...
underutilized at times. You spend quite a lot of points into them and then they can easily become a random hit or miss tool. But then on the other hand, in 8th edition they might be completely hosing other certain units. Like it's really tough to rationalize bringing a cool lord on a mount that is expensive, because even if they have that monster drake on the table, one cannonball can end his day. All that easily. And if there are 2 cannons, it's like
large target versus cannon. Name a better combo, I guess. Now, so there are some problems. You also have you can sling fanatics, and you have like some of those rules that are less than great.
Yeah, and I think hordes in of themselves is probably one of those areas that they need to touch upon as well, because I think that hordes absolutely impede on other unit formations at times. Like if you have the ability to go for a horde, that also means that your opponent needs to build their main block of core infantrymen to be capable of battling with that horde. And that either means like monstrous infantry or really elite infantry with stubborn.
Yeah, ranks are a bit problematic. A monster cannot disrupt.
Yeah.
That's a bit weird. You have 30 spearmen and then a high-rise coming in, but they're still stubborn because they're they should be disrupted by a hydra in the flank, I think. But it's so it is of course some rule they should look over and make better, because now you have to solve a lot of things in the community with comp system. And that is not a great solution.
I think there are better ways of handling it. And we shouldn't forget mentioning magic as well. There are certain, I don't think that I've met anyone that plays 8th edition and has had sufficient amount of games played that doesn't consider certain lores of the game to be a bit problematic.
To be way too strong.
Certain roll initiative, test or die.
There are definitely some problems. So they have some rules they should look over for sure, but they shouldn't go away from the complexity in the game. I think that is an important factor. The game should have a lot of rules. I personally I don't mind the templates either. I kind of think it's fun to have those measuring sticks on the board, and then you have the templates of trying to line them up. And as long as you don't get into an absolute millimeter justice kind of discussion with your opponent where either of you are unwilling to budge, then it isn't really a problem. I think it's more like a fun aspect of the game. Yeah, I think so too. I definitely think they should keep that. And I really like what they did with Horus Heresy. They brought back the templates and stuff, and that makes me happy and hopeful about the old world. Yeah,
because different things for different players. I think that the player group that is right now are probably quite happy with the game as is.
Yeah, I think so too.
But before we get into the final part of our wish list, there is one part of the rules update that we really look forward to as well. And I think that's going to be both included in the main rulebook and in the Army rules book.
Yeah, I think that expanding on the magical items would be great fun. You should have a large library of magical items with a plethora of different abilities.
And choices and special keywords. New heroes, characters, named mounts and all the cool good stuff.
Yeah, the more I play the game, the more I start to use magical items, and there's some really fun out there, but I think you can do so much more. The sky is the limit with magical items.
Yeah, and if they really want to go out there, make a crafting system out of the core rules set. Make it so that if you want to have a special magical weapon which has strength, and it also adds like poisonous attacks.
Yeah, like the strength is 10 points, the poison attack is 15 points, and then
So that you make a system that supports you to customizing and making your own poison the strength axe of slaying.
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah, I think that would be really fun to do stuff like that and keep a large library of them because there's so much potential to be had in the magical items. But the final thing that a game needs is of course a good setting.
Yeah.
And for many, I think that Warhammer fans ended on a bit of a sour note. Not everyone was happy with what happened in End Times.
Yeah, like I think that the grand scale of things was interesting to many people. Like the whole like chaos rising up. This is not just the regular Abaddon trying to invade
for the 600th time, and he's the worst villain for side note.
Yeah, but it was not him. This was like the real End Times. Like big things were in the moving. It just didn't like turn out the way everyone wanted when push comes to shove.
Yeah, I guess as a concept is really cool, like ending the entire world, but not keeping characters true to who they are. I guess that was the biggest problem. Like killing everything, I probably lived with that. But making characters act differently than they should have. I think that is what stung in people's eyes.
Yeah, and also like perhaps forcing chaos because it does feel like they knew the outcome they wanted before they wrote the setting. As me who wasn't around when it first came out, have started to read up on it in later times, and certain aspects do like seem odd.
Yeah, and when you get into the game now, like you don't, some things that are written like before, we are now in the year 2200 something, but some things that happen after this, like later 2400, you have like Skarsnik, what is it called, the goblin. You also have Grievous Goldtooth. He becomes the hero or like the leader of the ogres.
Yeah, unites the ogre.
Yeah, and that's also like later, and a lot of that stuff is really good, and you don't just want to remove it. Like you can't just say, oh, this never happened. But I think you have to look at it like another timeline, or like, so you can still keep all the good stuff while changing some other things.
Yeah, there are a certain, like, there is no like correct answer how to do this good. Like the wish list item is that Games Workshop write good lore.
Yeah,
but,
I suppose.
Like they could either like try to shoehorn in a complete new war or grand happening in betweenst where we are at the starting point, where we have the Orc Slayer, Bretonnian King, and we have the three emperors before Magnus Pius have united the empire once again, and we have all of this
the wars with the elves, Teclis, and all of those guys are coming.
Yeah, there are a bunch of stuff happening, but there is also like ample room to build complementing stories. Like you have Grand Cathay. They have most recently lost their two biggest like leaders, the two dragon aspects, that the Priestess of the Moon, and I don't remember what the other guy is.
Yeah.
That leads the whole Cathay Empire. What are they up to? Like make something around that. And what are the orcs up to? Like there is like a grand vastness of time in between where you could just introduce new characters into lore. You don't need to make them like more. You don't need like a Tomb King's character that's bigger than Cetra, or more evil than Nagash, or like more cunning than Arkham.
I think they have to build on new stuff, like without breaking what they have. Like some of the characters that we're talking about here is characters that people really like and read stories about them, and just changing those stories doesn't feel right. So you have to write this new lore in a way that like
it's compatible with
it's compatible. It needs to show some respect to the older stuff while introducing new fun things.
Yeah.
Because
one of the
things we were talking about before, like when you make like prequels with like known characters that you know are alive in the future, then there's no real stakes.
Yeah, they have plot armor. You know that they're gonna survive.
I know that Malekith is gonna be alive until the end time. So if you put him in harm's way now, I know it's gonna be alright.
So they need to like introduce some aspect of the lore that makes thing feel fresh and alive again.
Yeah,
like the world is in turmoil once again, and I should care about it.
Yeah, and they have so much stuff they haven't written about, like Kislev, and you have Norska or Norsi, and you also have Grand Cathay and
Chaos
Nippon,
Wars.
and there's so many things that are unexplored, and there are also some factions like in this part of the time that we're in that have like quite large holes in what they are currently up to. I know the Skaven is in some kind of long civil war, 450-year civil war, with a lifespan of like 20 years, so it's like a 50-generation war.
Yeah, but you could easily, within that setting of turmoil, introduce big things that doesn't necessarily need to conflict with the overarching stuff. You don't need to have Chaos be the main villains, I think. I think you could easily like center the whole campaign about there being a really huge Vag orc army on the rise. And perhaps, like as we mentioned previously, tie it into scalability.
Yeah.
Make it so that there are fewer like smaller skirmishes that you play around. There are perhaps named characters that avoid this grand happening from ever messing up with the established timeline.
Yeah, and I think about it, if we look at like 40k, you have like the Emperor who can see the future, but it's like possible trends. He sees a future that could happen if certain things would happen, play out in a certain way. And I think that is, something like that is the correct way to view it. Like the end times that happened, that we had, that was one possible way of the world turning based on other events. And based on the choices we take now, things can turn out differently.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same world, but
that's like an alternative timeline. Like you could have the setting be that there is some wise sage in Grand Cathay that has seen the end times coming, and now we are exploring an alternative timeline.
Yeah.
What would happen if certain key elements would change?
Yeah, like you started with like and the world turned black and like it ended, and then the seer wakes up and has seen like the end of the world,
and now we are trying to stop
needs to put the wheels in motion to come into a different future that are like passed down in generations. Because we're still like a few hundred years, like something along those lines would be really cool without like completely retconning the old stuff.
No, because in that alternative timeline you could still have those grand epic battles that happened in this time span of like 300 to 500 years.
Yeah.
And I think there is pretty cool stuff just around this part left to explore as well. Like we still have warp stone in the world that isn't out. It's not like it's frowned upon, you could say. It's not like outright banned, but it's frowned.
Yeah, it should be frowned upon.
But it's out there, and you have Empire that are like a bit iffy about using magics in their regular
I don't think
armies.
there's somewhere along this time they invent the steam tank as well. So it's
there are great innovations happening in this time period. So I think it would be really cool to center a story arc around that. Like make it about these world changing events and perhaps leave some leeway for other stuff that wasn't previously explored to be the main focus.
Yeah.
Because we don't really need to hear the same story again.
No, we don't, I suppose. I should think we definitely hear new stories, but without like removing the otherwise outright. But I think that's a great way of doing it as well, like seeing it as a possible future, because that also means that you can remove some of the plot armor. Like in end times that we had, this happened and this person survived, but it's not necessarily true that they will in this. And then it's like then you can remove, so it gives back some tension.
And possibly opens the door for an even further future expansion of this world as well, because we are in it for the long run. We hope that this is not just going to be one great release. We want like to see how do we make this continue to happen. so that there isn't like an end point. Okay, now we need to phase into end times, and then everything's gonna.
No, we don't want to get into new end times. We want this to keep going until we're old and grey.
Yeah. And then we can cash out our armies.
Yeah, then I'll sell my Tomb King's army for a house or something like that. Yeah. That is the plan.
Or I'll trade my Dogs of War armies for potatoes.
Yeah, that is also talking about expensive stuff. But yeah, I guess that's the wish that we have. But I want to mention like a final thing that we also talked about here before, is that right now we have 9th edition. Is one thing. Some people like us, we play both 9th, like VAP, and we also play 8th edition. But the people who run the 9th edition community and the people who play 9th edition have helped keep this game alive during the hiatus or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and even expand upon it. I think that the Warhammer Armies project is really, really awesome. I mean, like implementing rules for entire armies that wasn't even possible to play in the old Warhammer Fantasy days.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing thing that they've done.
The Nippon, Norska, you even have the Albion and the Halflings.
Yeah, and they keep making like new rules updates. But one fear that I have is that they're gonna get the big banhammer when new ones.
Because please don't do that.
Yeah, because they've used like the similar like army books, the same designs, and they've used artwork and all that. And I understand that is a problem copyright wise, but it is also because of them and that community that we are gonna get an old world finally, and just destroying all that work with a copyright cease and desist would be really sad, because there's so much work gone into that.
Yeah, that needs to be on our wish list as well. Like, please don't ruin all the great legacy stuff. Yeah, but because otherwise people are just gonna play the legacy stuff instead.
Yeah, but that is a real thing, because when the old world is released, some people are gonna be like, that's not great. I want to play 9th edition.
Yeah, or I want to play 5th edition.
Yeah, but just like us, we're playing 8th edition instead of 8th and 9th edition instead of Age of Sigmar. There's also gonna be people that are, no, not the old world. I'm gonna play 9th edition, and that has to be fine, because that community has done so much to keep the game alive when it disappeared, I suppose. Yeah. And that they're like a rare animal that needs to be protected or something.
You could say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to recap, what is in our wish list then? We really want to see the old 9th edition retain its place in the
of course,
grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and we want the ability to play games at different sizes,
model-wise and point-wise.
Yeah, model-wise and point-wise. We want
new scenarios.
Yeah, new fun scenarios that makes great use of new types of terrain.
Yeah, and objectives that you can have like really clutch games that you can win even though you are losing on the battlefield.
Yeah, scenarios that doesn't necessarily just mean that you have to kill more stuff than your opponent. We also want
accessibility to the game. Like release, be brave. Release the old good sculpts if you need to. Make new sculpts, but make the models accessible so that you can buy them.
Yeah,
and preferably not at a absolute monster premium from Finecast.
And then we also have magical items. Yeah. We want a large, diverse library of magical items.
And heroes and characters.
And mounts and all this kind of add-on stuff.
There is one thing in Empire that you play.
Yeah.
Mechanical steeds.
Yeah.
Why are they not more prevalent? It's like the most awesome unit steed.
It's so bad, but it's really fun.
It's the coolest thing in the whole game.
Yeah.
I wish there was like mechanical old ones.
Yeah, but if you want to look at expensive models, that's one of them.
Reprint.
So that is one of them.
They should make them print on demand. Like if sufficient amount of people want this kind of stuff, then you just when you get like 200 people, then you make a print run of it, and then you make a ton of money.
And aside from that, we also want a lore that is true to the characters and brings more new characters without messing too much with the already established stuff that people think is good.
Yeah. And I think that it would be fair to say that certain races should have their time in the spotlight a bit more.
Yeah.
Like, it would be really, really fun to see more orc campaigns, more wood elves campaigns, and perhaps some chaos dwarves.
Yeah, and then being from the north ourselves, the Norski, Kislev,
and Grand Cathay definitively.
Yeah, Grand Cathay seems super cool. Bring new fun lore into the mix, but respect the old stuff.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't necessarily need to be at a larger scale. There doesn't need to be a wizard more powerful than Nagash just because you could write it.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely.
Like, retain some respect for what is already established. Like, don't introduce new dragon princes to the high elves or other silly stuff.
Yeah, keep respecting the old stuff for a grumpy old man like us. Otherwise, we'll be on Reddit right away, writing angry comments.
Angry keyboard dojo warriors.
Yeah. So I guess that is the points that we have, or the wish list that we have for the game.
Yeah, and here we open the door for you as well. Compliment our wish list if you want. Let us know in the comments down below what is the things that we have missed on this first list.
Yeah, is there something that we brought up today that you disagree on? That shouldn't be part of it?
Like Jonas and Måns here, they are completely wrong, and go ham on the keyboard against us if you think so.
Absolutely, and if you have some other stuff that you hope that they include, write so in the comments down below, because we probably missed some stuff. Yeah. And we're gonna be making some more videos on the old world. We're gonna look at the lore, as we said in the beginning. Where are all the major characters in the story right now?
And I'm really looking forward to making that video, because I think we're gonna have this whole world map set out, and then we're gonna pinpoint each of the characters onto the map.
Yeah.
Where are they?
Where are they right now?
And what are they up to for kind of buffoonery?
Yeah. So we're gonna explore a bit into that. We have some other old world stuff planned. When they make an update that is significant enough to talk about, we're of course gonna cover that as well in the future. So we're hoping to see that very soon, I suppose.
Yeah. But with that, we'll see you in the next video.
Yeah. See you in the old world. Bye.